This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is part 3 of flyer number 412, entitled Masculist Disciplining of Women. Carrying straight on. Bullet. Making women bi-conscious. Masculists will discipline monoconscious feminazis by preaching to them that their feminist belief that gender oppression is a one-way street is simply not true, that women do indeed oppress men, and worse than vice versa, since women's oppression of men is continuous and lasts decades, as explained above. Masculists will go out of their way to harangue monoconscious feminazis that their monoconsciousness, that is, their ignorance of masculist ideas, that is, their not having had their masculist consciousness raised, making them monoconscious, and hence not bi-conscious, that is, not having had both their feminist and their masculist consciousnesses raised, is actually causing these monoconscious feminists to suffer unnecessarily due to their monoconscious ignorance. Bi-conscious feminists are much more aware than monoconscious feminists that their bi-consciousness makes them much more attractive to men, or rather a lot less repulsive to men, since a bi-conscious feminist will have had her feminazi bitchiness at men due to her awareness of how men oppress women, more or less cancelled by a corresponding mascunazi bitchiness at women due to her awareness of how women oppress men. These two gender political angers cancel each other, so bi-conscious feminists are much nicer to men, so are much more likely to have a boyfriend, whereas few men are prepared to have a relationship with a monoconscious feminazi bigot who refuses to see that gender oppression is a two-way street, that in fact women oppress men far worse than vice versa, etc. One of the major aims of the masculists is to make monoconscious feminists bi-conscious, by telling them about the ideas of the masculists, and especially by persuading journalists and the media people to broadcast masculist ideas to the general public, to the millions, so that monoconscious feminists can be influenced by masculist ideas and learn to overcome their monoconscious feminazi bigotry, MFB. Masculists have a particular contempt for MFBs, treating them as the first category of women to be rejected by men, seen as being repulsive to men. Masculists tell such women that they are repulsive to men and hence are rejected by men. No man wants a relationship with a misandrist, male-dumping, feminazi bitch and avoids such women like the plague. Feminists who remain monoconscious will be severely disciplined, that is, punished by masculists, by being forced to rot on the shelf. Young women will be strongly influenced by this masculist tactic and will be strongly motivated to become bi-conscious, since they desperately need to get their financial claws into some man to have him help pay for her to have kids, which for most women is their top priority in life. It is what they evolved to do. Bullet. Pricking feminist princess arrogance. Young women have grown up with second and third wave feminism and know nothing about masculism yet. So they tend to be supremely arrogant regarding their feminist views, seeing men as oppressors of women and feeling as young women that they are morally superior to men, since in their eyes it is men who are the oppressors. Since nearly all young women are monoconscious and are in the sexual peak of their attractiveness, with men falling all over them, they are often insufferably feminazi arrogant. Masculists who are scientists are in a position to crush this arrogance by merely pointing out to them how inferior women are as a sex, by giving these young women, and society in general, the masculist 6 noble truths of women's genetic inferiority, that is, 1. Women have 10% smaller brains than men. 2. Women are dumber than men by an average of 4 IQ points. 3. Women have a 10% lower IQ variance than men. 4. Women have won a pathetic 1% of science Nobel Prizes. 5. Women have a tenth of the testosterone levels of men. 6. Women don't build, create, invent much, so are not respected as a sex by men. Masculine scientists are particularly pissed off by the insufferable arrogance of young feminist princesses who feel entitled to special treatment simply because they are female. Their arrogance is easily pricked by masculists using the above scientifically verified facts. The more feminists, especially young feminist princesses, resist the above facts, the more masculist scientists will harangue them with greater impatience and venom. Masculist scientists have a hatred of PC bullshit, that is, being told that black is white, when due to their scientific knowledge they can see easily that so much of what the iscyanate feminists are telling them is just iscyanate, fairy, PC bullshit, that is, beliefs that are not based on evidence, that these iscyanate feminists believe that they believe what they want to believe, that makes them feel good, that they live in a fairyland who are free to believe whatever they like. But then that makes them, in the eyes of the masculist scientists, no more credible than religionists or flat earthers. The masculine scientists then sneer at these iscyanate fairy feminists, these young feminazi princesses, treating them as ignorant peasants, not to be taken seriously and are hence ignored. Afterward. Masculists have many tools to discipline women, so that women are compelled to be nicer to men, to not abuse men, not to oppress men. Men can use the above tools to force women to grow up, to fip up, to become bi-conscious, to rid themselves of their feminazi princess arrogance, etc. All men have to do to be rid of these afflictions coming from women is to learn some masculist rhetoric and ideas, then hurl them back at monoconscious feminazi bigots, that's MFBs, beating them at their own game. Women will soon be feeling as though they have been hit by a bus, the masculist bus, when millions of men, intellectually armed with masculist ideas and rhetoric, take over the gender political stage, dominating it the way men dominate everything, since women cannot compete with men at the top end of the performance scale due to women's genetic inferiority relative to men, as shown above. Once men have had their masculist consciousness raised, there will be no stopping them. They will rid the world of fluffies, of fluffy feminists, MFBs, feminazi princesses, etc. It will be a very different world. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, an e-textbook of 410 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses, freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.